And we are back in the studio with an amazing another guest. It's just a lineup of amazing people. I have to say again, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for all the things that you're showing up. You are here and you are sharing knowledge. Thank you so much, Carl, that you
Thank
are
you.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a wonderful, wonderful summit with such tremendous people and such great information. I'm just really been enjoying myself.
Thank you so much. And I know that you are also busy. We just have been celebrating together your new office, and I'm
Yes.
so happy for you. It's good to celebrate these moments in life, right?
Yes, it is because you work so hard, and a lot of times we forget the journey piece and where we've come from because we got our minds so set on where we're trying to go. So it's amazing to just sit back and say, "Wow, I've come a long way. Come a long way."
Yeah, we all come a long way, and then people sometimes just are envious about the surface. Like, okay, she has
Yeah.
that, he has that, and everything. But we have to tell you guys right now with Carl. We will tell you we can be vulnerable. We suffered a lot. There is a lot of hard work behind this, and there is a lot of work still on the road until we really get there where we want to be. So you cannot really make shortcuts, right, Carl?
No, you got to put the work in, but it's so rewarding. A lot of times we get stuck at, oh man, what do I have to do? It's so hard. But when you find yourself doing it, it becomes like second nature, and then you start seeing the growth in your own self, and you look back on it, and it doesn't take a long time. You can start seeing changes just about immediately if you start dedicating yourself to making those changes, and you can look back and say, wow, I didn't even know I had this in me. I didn't even know I can do these things. So it's amazing.
Yes, it's so nice to have you here and your energy and positivity. And today we have a specific topic dedicated to you. I see you specializing in niching down more and more towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you are also championing the vulnerability for leaders. So that will be our topic for today. But before we jump into that, let's just talk about Carl. So, who is Carl? Who are you? What are you up to? What's your
Oh
favorite
man,
car? I don't know. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
yes, it's great to be here. Like I said, and I'm Carl Sean Watkins. Go and find me on LinkedIn. Carl Sean Watkins is all over LinkedIn. That is my home. That's where I am. But I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, and my emphasis is pretty much in the direction of vulnerability and leadership. I'm also a law student with the emphasis in business and corporate law. And through my business, Carl Sean Watkins Consulting, I coach and train CEOs and executives how to embrace vulnerability. I don't think everyone knows how to do that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't. A lot of people are really championing against doing it because they're not understanding the power behind it. But I kind of teach CEOs and executives and leaders how to do that. And it shows them in the essence of teaching and coaching and training them that it kind of boosts the performance, it builds the relationships, and it definitely increased the profitability because they tie all in together. We got happy workers, you got productivity, and we got productivity in business. We know that increases the profits that you make. So there's a straight lineage through that's really propelled businesses forward. So
Thank you so much. But again, you forget the personal treat. So we need to know also about you yourself. Tell us a little bit about your hobbies or about your favorite pet. I don't know.
my favorite hobbies. I love sports. I played two sports in high school. So sports. We're now in the season where baseball in the U.S. has kind of finished up. Now we into the basketball season. It's the middle of the football season, and it's hockey season, and we soon have the soccer coming up. So there's a lot of things that I'm a TV nerd. I love to watch the sports all the time, but I love to read as well. Reading is my pastime. Reading in church. So if I would say hobby wise, those are the things that I love to do, and I love to learn new things. Not so much as some people look to learn so they can tell you. I just look to learn for myself. I like to know things for myself. I like to experience different things for myself. And if it comes up in conversation, I can talk about it. But I don't learn a lot of things to say, hey, I know. Never been like that. Some people delve into learning to be that kind of person. Yeah, I know about that. I know about. They want to know about everything. I don't want to know about everything to tell everybody everything. I just want to know about a lot of things so I can know for my own self. Oh, that's pretty cool. You know. So,
Experience and experiencing it yourself and learning on the go. Love this approach. So your title, let's get into the deep dive. It has two very amazing and very powerful parts, and one of
mhm,
them is such a big topic already. The first part, the
yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's also one of the chapters of the hub, and that's also somehow how we are aligned, because
Mhm.
diversity for me, it's a superpower. It's something, if you embrace it, the diversity can bring so much more to an organization, to a person, to a country, to a society. So what's your understanding on diversity, equity, and inclusion, with your words, with your experience, with your background?
Yes, I've been in leadership about 30 years in the corporate arena, and through that, and I've been fortunate that the jobs I went through, the leadership was kind of like the path in each one of those jobs, and by the nature of how I work and how I do things, I was always put to the top of that. But I didn't know really the dynamic of how the equity piece of that was to someone as myself as a minority, right? So you're in this white world, so to speak, with the leadership, and breaking in, there's traditional things that's already been in place that pretty much to some extent outdated, antiquated. So I come in with a lot of fresh ideas, and in the beginning you get a zeal, you want to make a difference, you want to make change. When you get in leadership, you have this like, I'm going to save the world mentality. But there was a lot of hard knocks in understanding that I was excluded from a lot of things, and I wasn't allowed to do certain things that others were, and I just didn't necessarily look at it from I saw it from the perspective of my heritage and me being different, but I also looked at it from a part of it was affecting the organization and the growth, because a lot of my ideas, though they were like champion ideas that was going to make millions, right? But there were ways that we can improvise and do things better. And collectively, if everyone would have brought on board a lot of times with things, we could have either seen if it worked or see if it didn't. And a lot of times those chances and opportunities were missed just for the simple fact is because I didn't look like everybody else. And I started getting into more about that diversity piece, and I was understanding, especially in the U.S., that a lot of companies were checking the box for the diversity. They had the minorities there, but they weren't engaging them and they weren't involving them. So I said, well, we're missing a piece here. So I wrote up some initiatives and some things, and I thought about the vulnerability piece, and I said, well, everybody is vulnerable, right? There's nothing that no one can say they've never been vulnerable at some point in place in their life. This affects everyone, regardless of what you look like, what ethnicity you are, whatever color you are. It goes across the boundaries. So I said, if we can learn to show a little bit of that in our interactions and in our leadership, we'll start seeing people as what they are able to do instead of what they look like. And we'll be able to include them based upon the things that they want to accomplish and not our agendas. So I started looking into that, and I came up with diversity plus vulnerability equals inclusion. And I say, if we get the diverse people and the included people already to be a little more vulnerable and meet in the middle, we'll have the bridge of connection. So I just really started working and writing on those kind of things. And that's how I kind of fell into both of them. And I said, oh, wow, this is a great dynamic, because I haven't heard it like that. Of course, we've heard about Brene Brown and her talking about the vulnerability and leadership, but I bring it from a perspective of lived vulnerability, how those things have actually affected me. Brene Brown is excellent, and she's researched and she's asked questions and she's dived in, but she's also white privileged. So how can she really talk about the things in diversity that affects me? And that's what really makes us different. We're out for the same goal, and we're still out for the same piece of educating, but we're bringing it from different dynamics. And I think it's essential that you have someone that you go in a boardroom and you don't see anyone that looks like you automatically feel ostracized, because you have people that are making decisions that affect everyone, but a little piece of everyone is not in there helping out with the decisions. And those are the kind of things that has really championed me to get into both of those and actually combine them together, because they're beneficial in that way.
Yeah, it's a powerful combination. And what you say about how people, I had this with the youngsters. I had the generation gap the previous year in my summit. That was the main topic that we were talking about, how to include different generations. And
Mhm.
as usual, we sometimes have assumptions. And I was like, oh, young people have these problems and that problems and these problems. And then I was like asking some young people like, okay, what are the things that you are challenged with? And then they were telling me totally different things. And that was for me kind of like a phase when I was thinking, all right, so challenges, diversity, equity, inclusion, vulnerability, everything is personal. It's a personal experience. It's all relates to your background, to who you are, to how you were grown up, to everything which is you. But it cannot be really generalized. It cannot be
Yeah.
labeled, because once it's labeled, you take out of the context everything else which is coming through a life of a person, which is amazing and extremely a lot of information, right?
Yes, it is, and you'd be surprised when I started this journey before the pandemic, because I was always talking about vulnerability in corporate arena. That was always, so this is not new to me, and even talking about the diverse part of that is not new to me, because I've always talked about that with every job I've had, and I came from out the military into corporate, so my mind was a little jaded at how leadership was, because when you're in the military, it doesn't matter the color, you pay attention to the person that's in charge, right? There's no questions, there's no. So I kind of came from that dynamic where if you're the leader, regardless of what you look like, people have to, hear you. And I jumped right from that into the corporate leadership, and it was like totally opposite. It's like, I don't care what you look like, you're in charge, I'm gonna get you trouble, and I'm not gonna listen. I was like, wow, this is kind of strange. So I had to reassess the dynamic of which I was in, and I started thinking about how would I want people to treat me, and that's how I started my leadership with individuals, and I grew close to them. We oftentimes, and I say it a lot, we don't understand as leaders the power we have to mold. We have an opportunity to either make people worse or to either make people better. And we don't take that. I take that very seriously. That's a serious responsibility I have, because I want you to be, first of all, I want to be an example of what you should be and incorporate with those you're going to eventually lead. And also, I want to grow you under me. I don't want anyone I'm leading to not grow. I think that defeats the purpose of leadership. At some point in time, I want that person to be able to step into what I'm doing so I can step to the next level. But we don't think like that. We oftentimes, as leaders, we think, well, if it takes 10 ways to do something, I'm only going to show you 8 so I can keep 2 back for myself so you can't take my job. And that's a bad way of thinking, right? I want you to know 10. If it's 10 ways to do it, I want you to know the 10 that I know. And hopefully you'll figure out 2 or 3 other ways so we can grow, right? It's all about growing to me. And that makes the most sense to me. And if you're not understanding the people you lead, leadership is not one direction. Leadership is understanding the people under you. I may have to push Andrea a little bit to get her to do certain things or to come out of her shell. I may have someone else that, hey, they volunteer, they'll do it, they don't have a problem. Leaders, you have to be aware, and self awareness is really the key to say, okay, I'll lead you like this, but this one may not need as much, so I can give them that. And that's what makes a great leader.
Yeah, I think it's an important point here, what you mentioned, that we have to give this free space also for playground for people to play. It's not
Yes.
like the direct leadership that has been taught to be the best leadership, right?
Mhm.
As you said, like in the military or old school way of educating people.
Yeah.
And now it's all about freedom and free interpretation, and all about how you see the world and how you are bringing your perspective and your ideas forward. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. Yes.
Also, I think one very important thing that comes to my mind, it comes for, I always relate things to dancing, because as a child I was doing that all the time, just like you were going to become a soldier. I was like really the determined dancer going to my practices, and I always thought that, okay, my teachers can really help me or they can stop me from growing. And some teachers were really helping me. They were explaining, they were helping me grow and letting me experiment. And some teachers, they just couldn't find the right way to tell me, or if I got vulnerable, then they became more aggressive and they tried to push more, or they couldn't deal with the situation. And I
Mhm.
guess it's happening also in the corporate world and in everywhere else, that some leaders, just when they see vulnerability either they are afraid or they have something in their past which is coming up and they relate to it totally weird, and they just cannot do anything with it, so they toughen up, and then the relationship is broken, and it's really hard to fix in a work environment, right?
Yes, it is because it disconnect the connection. When we're not vulnerable with each other, we don't really truly, first of all, we don't understand each other on a full level. And when I say understanding, when you're in the workplace, there are things that we need to understand besides getting the reports, getting the data, working on KPIs. Those are essentials to the business. Of course, they are. We're not disregarding that. But what we're saying is, how effectively can we get that information? And we get that information more effectively through relationships, because when we're building relationships with those we lead or with those we're working with, we're building trust. So now there's a dependence upon you to have my back as well as me have yours. And I think the nervousness is in that is a lot of people go off of their past experiences of maybe someone abusing that space, someone neglecting them in the area of that, or someone not really caring about how they feel. And that's the leadership role. When we create those, and I talk about this, and I speak to a lot of executives about this. When it is important for you to create that environment, that safe space must be created from the top, and it must be kind of policed in a sense where the cliques can't be involved with disrupting that. My favorites can't be a part of that. It has to be on the even keel, and that really has nothing to do with the diverse piece of that or the ethnicity piece of that. That's just in total fairness to everyone you're leading. I can't be your boss and you have a different set of rules than I have for maybe Mary or John. And I know you all are different, but what I have to do as a leader is say, okay, the rules remain the same, but I know you'll have situations where maybe I can address by case basis. And I think a lot of times leaders don't really want to do the work. And I know it may sound like, oh God, you against the leaders. It's not that. Is that we failed those that are under us for such a long period of time. We have to do the things now to get the trust back, to build the relationships back. That's why corporate is having a hard time now trying to replace jobs. Because when people got an opportunity to leave that, they left it. So now, you want these people back, you want to do the hybrid, or you want to bring them back to the office. People they're fighting that now. It's like, I don't want to go back to that chaoticness. I don't want to go back to that toxic workplace. I did better at home, homeschooling my children or working at home. I did it better. So now there's a fight with that. And all of that is based upon the relationships that were not built when the opportunity was there. So now you got a revamping of that, and leaders have to take notice of what's going on. You're going to have to be more self-aware. You're going to have to be more involved, and you're going to have to let people see that you aren't the one that knows all the answers. Because the funny thing is, everybody already knows you don't. So you as a leader trying to pretend or trying to put that facade up, people already know that you don't know what you're talking about when you talk about things. People already know that you're in trouble with things and how things are, because really they're the ones doing the work. So they understand what's going on. So we have to respect them as such.
It brings me into the question of challenging the world, because challenging you in a way that I will ask you a question which is related to this mobile world, that we can be placed in any part of the world today as leaders, right? In a big organization that has global systems and affiliates in all over the world. So also comes that we are going globally online, which means we are leading different teams all over the world as the same person. So it says that it's the same challenge for any kind of ethnicity, any kind of part of the world, to lead different kind of people and to find a way to communicate with them. So it's not just one of the person who is okay. For the employees, you have to create this diverse equity and include everyone. But as a leader, you are put into a situation like we were talking about age groups. Like, what if the people are younger than you and the leader is younger, and then they don't respect you because you are a younger leader? And it's the same with ethnicity. If you get on the top of a different ethnicity that you haven't experienced before. So what is the thing that people can do to deal with that, or to where do they start to understand, okay, what do I do?
It's along the same lines, Andrea. You make a great point. A lot of times we think about the diversityness, and we often jump to the color, right? People of color, people not of color. So that's really the captain obvious, so to speak, in the room. That's the diversity. But there's also the diversity of thinking. There's the diversity of maybe handicap. There's a diversity of those kind of things as well that we bring in. The minority piece of that is just a small juncture into that. There's the age diversity that we find out. But the thing that binds us all is the vulnerability of knowing who we are. And I think a lot of times that's where the line never gets connected because we aren't sure who we are, or we aren't standing who we are, or we may be ashamed of who we are because we aren't where we think we should be. So all of those things play into how we deal with people, how we deal with each other. Oftentimes I think about the ambassador. I'm kind of like I call myself a bridge, and age wise, I'm 55, but I'm old enough to be understanding how they think back then. But I'm young enough now that I'm in the world of social media and I'm in the world of TikTok and all that. I kind of know how they flow as well. So what I kind of did was say, okay, some things in this part I don't understand. Let me ask questions. Let me find out about, and things that people have don't understand about how it used to be done and why people continue to think like that. I give them examples of saying, yo, I know this may be wrong, but this is probably why they think like this. So what we're doing when we're doing that, we're giving ammunition to them to go out and say, okay, if I run across someone that's maybe 55 and they thinking that they don't want to change and social media is blah blah, now I can have some information that says this is what will benefit you even at your age or whatever you're doing. This will benefit you. This will bring your diverse piece into that. And when we start marrying those ideas instead of separating them and categorize them, because we love to put things in categories.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
We love to do that. Something it got to go here. There's a place here. There's got to be here. When we start marrying those ideas and say, "Yo, that makes much more sense." Now here I am at my age. I'm understanding that yeah, TikTok isn't all that bad. I may not get good or efficient in it, but at least I understand how it operates. Social media is not that bad. Me having a website is not that bad. Oh, okay. So when you start breaking it down to that, and there's some explanation in that, not only that, that builds the relationships. Now you have relationships with someone that's experienced, that's senior, that can tell you how to avoid a lot of the things that you as a young person just zealous and knowledgeable, but you haven't had the experience. So when I run into things, I ask a lot of my counterparts that are older than I am and experience some things that I haven't experienced. I think that's a wealth of information, and we have to learn and being humble in ourselves, being vulnerable enough to say, "Yo, no, I don't know that. Let me go ask somebody." There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't hurt you. It seems like these kids today want to. I know how to do that. I know how to do that. Even when I was taught that as a kid, my dad used to say, "Never tell anybody you know." He used to hate people to say, "I know." That was his kind of like pet peeve. Like when you say something to him or you say something to somebody, and the first thing out their mouth, "Oh yeah, I know." And he used to be like, well, if you know, why are you doing it? If you know, why you're not doing it right? He used to always say that. So he said, when you say, I know to someone, you're cutting off the help, the information, the assistance, the knowledge that they have that they would have provided you with, all because you said you know. And if you listen and you watch and you learn, a lot of people that's jumped or quick to say, I know, you get down the road, you'll find out, you didn't know. You should ask some questions. You didn't really know.
Yeah,
So,
the I know kind of thing,
yeah.
attitude, or that is cutting the conversation, the connection
Hmm.
already straightforward at the beginning of it, and there's no way to get out of it because the other person will be thinking like, okay, he knows, okay, what else?
You're
So
right.
that is already lost. That topic will be
That's
never
long.
mentioned again.
It won't be mentioned again. And when people tell me that, I used to cut it off, but I know people have it's sort of like a pattern with people. It's sort of like how you say things sometimes you don't really realize you say it because it's just something you've always said. So I kind of like ask the question after that when someone say, "Oh yeah, I know," and I'll just wait till they get done and I'll say, "Do you really know?" I give them an opportunity to really think about it and say, "Oh, you know what? I really don't know." Because some people just say that out of habit. It's just a part of their verbiage. It's a part of their language or how they talk. Oh yeah, I know. But have you really listened to what I asked you so you can understand? So I go back, I give them a minute to pause, and I say, do you really know? And a lot of times they'd be like, oh, okay, what you say again? See, so now you know, but you're right. It cuts the
Here comes
conversation.
the molding.
It cuts the conversation when you're talking and when you say I know. At that point in time, most people will think at it. They won't think about that no more because you told them you know. So they're going by what you say. So there's the opportunities there. The opportunities are there. I think the biggest component about what I teach and what I coach and train and speak on is make yourself accessible to those relationships. That's really what being vulnerable is about. I like to use the term vulnerable because it draws attention to. But when I explain it to people, it's just really making yourself accessible, coming out of the comfort zone of where you sat in and see what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. I know we talk about empathy a lot with that, but being vulnerable is definitely part of that. Like, how can you see how things are for you? For that person. Look and see what that person may have had to go through to get where they are. Celebrate their journey as well, even if it wasn't yours, even if you can't understand it. Celebrate that as well, and you'll start to break down some of those barriers that were just really put up by your own self. They weren't put up by anyone else. So.
You know what? I was listening to you and I was thinking, okay, how could I summarize all this? And I was thinking about us as a children, like
Mhm.
if we as adults could put on um, that glass without the labels, that
Yeah,
curiosity, that pure interest in other people, that love towards new things and exploration. I think if we could bring it back, and also the vulnerability, because when you're a kid, when you have something, you just cry. You just show. There's no like hiding away that I cannot cry in front of you. It just comes out naturally. If we could keep that, if we could relive that, and then bring it back, I think that would be an amazing gift.
yeah, it would. It would be, and it would benefit. It would benefit everybody, and we'll see how much we can grow in there. It's such an amazing thing, especially working with people when you see them get it, right? Whatever it is they're looking for, whatever it is they find out about themselves, when you see them say, "Oh," or you see the facial expression, or you see the joy that they have when they learn that, yeah, I can do that too. It's like no other feeling in the world, and it's
Hmm.
really what, as a leader, you should be aspiring to. Of course, you got all those leadership things that the responsibilities that you have, but our greatest responsibility is to grow those under us so they can take the companies higher. They can take organizations higher. They want to work for you. I don't want anyone to work for me that every day I come in, I know behind my back they're talking about me. I wouldn't want to be in an atmosphere like that. And that happens every single day in a lot of corporations. People are coming in to work because they need the jobs, right? So they're not going to leave the jobs, but they're coming in and they're either not giving you all they have, they're talking about you behind your back, or you're the joke of the office. And now, who wants to be in that kind of leadership? So
Well, amazing, inspiring conversation again. It's always a
yes,
pleasure to have
absolutely.
you with us. And as a last thought, where can people find you? What are the places where you are most responsive? And
I am
yeah,
here.
and what is the focus?
Yes, focus is. I'm on LinkedIn. Go look me up, Carl Sean Watkins. There, also check out my LinkedIn page. It's Carl Sean Watkins Consultant. I do a lot of things on there. Go and read some of my blogs. You'll see a lot of the work I do, the writings I do, the content that I present as far as vulnerability and leadership and what leadership truly means and should truly aspire to. I am on Instagram as well, Carl Sean Watkins Consultant, and on Facebook, Carl Sean Watkins Consults. So we're on there as well. And I have a course coming out called Vulnerability and Leadership, the
Mm.
Superpower, that's going to be launching, I think, around the first week of December. We're on the target date for that to be launching then. So look out for that. I'm going to be doing some teasers and some launch information over on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my second home. It's a place where I don't have to turn the key or turn the lights off. It stays there for me all the time. So go look me there and check my website, of course, carlshawnwatkins.com, where you can go in there and find out about the services I offer, the programs I have, the coaching programs, the consulting information, and definitely the DEI information on there as well. So go check it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carl,
Thank
for being
you.
with us for such after so many years. I'm so happy to bring you back
Yeah,
every year. Looking
absolutely.
forward to next year already, where
Yes,
I'm planning a
I'm already looking
in-person
forward to
summit.
it.
So hopefully we can have everyone together for a nice
Yes, I'm looking forward to
experience.
that. That will be awesome to have all of us together in one place. That will be awesome.
Thank you so much, Carl, and I wish
Thank
you a beautiful day and
you as
have a
well.
beautiful experience
Thank
today.
you too. Have a great night.
Bye. See you. All right, we are switching speakers again. Someone else is coming, and we are again switching continents. So Carl was coming to us from the US, and we are coming back to Europe, my home, my my roots, very close to my own country. Juergen is coming to us, and I will bring him up to the studio, and we will talk about his specific topic that he chose for today, which is about compassionate, caring leaders that is very, very much connected to vulnerability. So, welcome, Juergen. Hi, Juergen. How are you today?
Hello, good to see you, Andrea. So I'm fine. I'm 7 hours behind you, so day is still running. But nevertheless, for today, I hope it's one of the highlights for me. So based compared to all the normal stuff. So happy to be back again after last year.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm always happy to see familiar faces. It's kind of like a class reunion every year. We are meeting together, we are catching up with each other, and it's just amazing. Like in 5 weeks, I'm seeing hundreds of people that I have not seen before for years. So it's crazy experience from
Yeah,
this side. I don't know how it is on the other side.
you know what you are doing is what I did for many years, and in the end you always need a volunteer. When you think of school classes, yeah. So how often do you meet your classmates? And of course, the older you get, the longer the period where you don't meet, yeah. And in the end, it's always everyone wants, but you need at least one person like you who just did the effort and organize it. Yeah. Then, still one of the last baby boomers. So when I finished school, we were 120 in the same class, which was record at that time. So the good news is, even after now 40 years, still 70 people or so are coming.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a good number. I just had mine.
Exactly.
I think it was 20 years or something, but it was quite nice. But we had to put two classes together to have that number, and it was like around like 40 or something. So it's quite a big number. I don't know how you do it. I have to ask for it.
And when we talk about compassionate and caring and so on, the interesting thing is, of course, there's always more or less the same people coming. Yeah. So you lost certain people never coming back, but the hardcore people, so to speak, they are coming every time. And you know what is the most fascinating thing is always, how do they look like, and do you realize names still after such a long time? And then it's really the same thing every time. It's, I would not call it gossip, it's just the kind of, can you remember this approach, do you remember what we, and so on. And then talk about some other people who are not there. So I really appreciate it. So I did it for many years, but my workload, because I'm not living anymore in the area where my school was. So for me, it's a much bigger effort to organize, because still half of the people living in the same area. So I'm more happy to join, see my parents and my sisters, because they are still living there. So that's also a nice, arrangement. So much to
Combining
the
the experience.
so much to the introduction.
All right. Thank you so much for just letting us in a little bit into your private life and telling us about your experience. And then also, because not everyone will know you who is watching this video, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your favorite ice cream. I don't know, something that you would like to share with the people who are watching us.
Yeah, maybe just for my background, I'm probably one of the few non-entrepreneurs. I'm just a normal employee of one of the top three companies in the world in the context of animal health. So the name is Boehringer Ingelheim. located in Germany at the beautiful River Rhine, not far away from Frankfurt area. Maybe that's the city most of people know, at least the airport. And I'm working with this company already for more than 25 years. For my background, I studied decades ago. I studied nutritional science, did my PhD in pharmacology and toxicology because I always knew I want to start working in the pharmaceutical industry. That was always my goal, and obviously it was the right decision. I'm still there. And 15 years I worked on the human side. In the non-prescription area, mainly in medical. And since 12 years, I'm more in the R&D part of our animal health division and a global project leader for new pharmaceutical treatment options for dogs and cats. So that's my focus. I just started the sixth decade of my life in spring. And I'm very passionate about my job. I love my job. Some years ago, I added also an MBA because I was always interested also in the business side of what I'm doing. The last couple of years, and this is where we met last time already, is, I'm working as a project leader. I have no real direct reports. So I'm working in a matrix structure with people distributed all over the world. Currently, with a clear focus on the US and a few colleagues in Europe, but mainly with US colleagues. And so when we talk about leaders and leadership, so my challenge is I was, let me say differently, I was not so affected by Corona because I did already virtual life all the time because my colleagues in the US or in Lyon, France, or in Germany, we met anyway mostly online and not very often. So that was good. So I guess that we managed it quite nicely. But most recently, I was the first time again in the US after 2.5 years. It was fantastic, to see the people in real and have a social evening dinner event, and just talk about God in the world and everything. So that is something which I miss. So I'm married, no children. I'm a cat person. So all my life, our last cat just died with 18. And funny enough, since 2 months now, there's another cat showing up at our door and has decided to be obviously the successor, and it's funny. So it's the 5th cat in a row, which we haven't chosen, but they chose us. So that is the fun part, and it's always outdoor cats. So I would never dare to keep them in the house. So we have a cat door, and so it's fantastic. So that's that. And otherwise, because you said of hobby things, I love nature. I'm out in the nature as often as possible. And spring to autumn, you will see me often on my mountain bike. And additionally, one other thing, I'm very engaged in my alumni organization. I had a scholarship from the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Germany, and I'm a member of the board in this alumni organization. So this means I try to keep always contact also to younger people, and support younger people wherever I can. And, I'm always very, very active on LinkedIn. That is more or less my social network, but not as a content creator, much more for supporting people. I mentor and coach some young women in Nigeria, in Africa. So this is one of my other favorite topics. When I can be supportive, I love to do that.
Thank you so much, Juergen. And you would have been amazed because I was just having a conversation with Yuki, and while we were having the conversation this afternoon, Yuki's cat was walking into the screen, and I just heard first a meow meow, and then I saw a tail coming along. She was showing me the cat. So it was so nice, just a nice surprise. Sometimes these things can be so joyous after you are sitting in front of the computer for so long and the cat walks in.
Yeah, the same like yesterday, I joined a LinkedIn Live, and then the dog was all of a sudden sitting on the lap of of the host, but it was, everything was more relaxed from that moment onwards. So then we probably lose a little bit of our seriousness. And just laugh more. So yeah.
That's the good thing in pets. And back to the leadership and back to the compassionate, caring leaders, the title that you chose. Let's deep dive in it. So what is exactly this title and what does it mean for you? Tell me a little bit about that.
I had the luck and listen a little bit to the rest of the session beforehand. So I heard quite several things already there in it. Because, the thing with compassionate and caring leaders, on top, for me, it's very important also to see all this diversity and inclusion topics. Yeah. I forgot to mention, so I'm a member in our company of volunteering group since several years who take care also here. So with a focus, of course, to support women in leadership roles and also to support younger people. And another topic we are busy with, and this is also something which fits perfectly here. We see, at least in many industries, we see a little bit this ageism topic. Yeah. So with Generation X and Z coming up and the baby boomers about to leave. Yeah. And so this is quite an interesting transition period. Yeah. Because, when you hear I'm 25 years with the same company, that will not be the rule anymore. The rule will be that people change quite more often. And for companies and also for our companies, it's one of the challenges, that we don't miss people, after when we may invest 2-3 years to bring them on the level we need them, and then they say was nice with you and move to the competition or so. Yeah. So there's one of the challenges, and I believe, and then to close the circle with your question, I believe one of the things is that the culture you have in a company will become of utmost importance. Yeah, for these people. I can remember, and you probably too, when you think of your interviews maybe you had years ago, there was always this famous question, why should we hire you? What kind of value will you add to our company? When I look today in interviews, and it's the opposite. They very confident, with high self-esteem young people sitting there asking me, why should I come? So what do you offer me? So it's a really
it's a twisted situation. Yeah.
Of course I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the topic, to make the topic clear, and everyone's talking about work-life balance and on all this kind of things. That's all important, but what I believe is more is that the new generation coming up and growing now also in leadership roles are more interested in a fair balance of how they can add value, but also how they can ensure that their family life and other things are nicely correlated. It's not this 12-hour working and from Monday to Friday, and even on the weekend you check your emails all the time. So there's a big shift, and that means if you want, my experience at least is that when you want to keep these people motivated, it's a new approach, and compassionate and caring doesn't mean for me, I'm the father of the company and these are my children. So that's not what it's all about. The thing is to have a very great level of understanding, for each other. So what are my needs? What are your needs? What are the company needs? And how can we, combine all these things together? And for example, in Germany and in general, but in our company in particular, so we have added some extras which are not standard, like 2 weeks paid leave when you have to take care of your family members, and so on. Yeah, and these things are, when you then talk to candidates, they are more important even than the salary. So it's not the salary who drives mainly decision. It's still important, but it's more about, you know, how can I bring myself intensively into the company, but also get enough space to take care of what is important for me. In particular, when you think of that more in particular in Germany, I guess it's similar in the US. I don't know so much about the Asian countries, but it's becoming standard that both partners are working, which gives new challenges, yeah, and new understanding. And one of the things we have now started, very interesting project, is sharing and you know, a full-time equivalent, sharing leadership between two people. So that's quite an interesting thing, so that people, you know, only work half-time but share leadership with someone else. And for let's say for 2 years, you know, instead of maternity or paternity leave, they reduce their workload to 50%. So they don't lose contact. They are still there. They still have leadership responsibility. And when after these 2 years, they come back in full responsibility. So that's a pilot project going on, for example, where we try to show the caring aspect and say, okay, we need you, we need your expertise, and this is maybe a win-win situation for the two of us. And compassionate again, I would say the major thing for me in the aspect of being compassionate is just to, compared to the older days, is the leaders need to develop back a much better active listening skill. Yeah, so this seems to get lost in all the pressures, and even now, you know, with economic crisis, with inflation, with the fear of people losing jobs and all so on. Yeah, so it's much more important that we listen and understand, and you know, also this famous saying that you should listen to understand and not to reply. So that's one of the major things I also see. And yeah, so this is I think what I try, and I guess many in my company, but also all over the world, trying to build into the leadership, and saying, okay, now it's a time where too many people think about, you know, economic situations and the impact on their lives, while all our, you know, the work is still there, has to be done, and the higher they are motivated, you know, the less they have to work in the end, and the more time they will spend with the things they want to do. So this is, I guess, the major approach from compassionate, caring leadership.
Beautiful approach, and I was just listening to you to try to put everything into context, and what I was thinking about is mainly the shift. I'm super curious about when the shift has happened, because when my parents were doing their jobs, it mostly was about the employer. I'm here, you do this is what you get. And it was very rarely that someone was standing up and saying, I want more. And then we came into the picture, we were like kind of in the middle. We already could have a higher, have a HR person or someone protecting our rights and their possibilities, and trying to find even a little bit higher salary or position us. And then comes the new generation, where the switch is just a very big change compared to all of this. That I am here, I'm confident, I know this, what do you give me? And I understand it's all about awareness, it's all about making space and living a life. But is it because they see that this past experience of the past generation, it was so bad that it's making them so much not wanting that they see their parents working so much? Or where is the change coming from? What is driving the change for the new generations?
So I would say there, of course, there are several aspects. There's not just the one thing. But you know what has changed dramatically, for example, to when I was applying for jobs, is we have definitely a lack of qualified people. So there's a huge demand on the industry side for qualified people. We have many, jobs which we cannot even fill for a long time, or we are really in a competition with, competitors about, this war for talent. Yeah, even if I don't like the word, but there is a high competition, in the industry for qualified people, and let's say this: the moment you realize that people need you and want you, you may also start thinking differently and have a certain shift and said, it's not about, I don't want to do blackmailing or something like that, but I have new power in making decisions. And I know that there are at least 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe highly qualified companies who would love to have me. So I guess that's one of the major drivers. We have a higher demand we cannot fulfill at the moment in many areas. So that gives some power. The other thing is, I still believe, even if maybe there is not really the final research out there, but I believe that the Corona time has also led to a major shift. Because, for example, before Corona, I could not even imagine not being in the office every day. That was out of my scope. Yeah, so I wanted to be there. I need also the socialization and so on. And after 2.5 years, more or less, working from home, my mind has shifted 180 degrees. So I'm only in the office when it's absolutely necessary. I love working from home and this kind of freedom. And I guess also that is something, which had a major shift in younger people, to see that everything is possible without being present all the time. That virtual life is possible and giving you much more freedom. Yeah, you may live in Manila and work for a German company, and it's just that the time shift which you need to adapt, but otherwise you don't have to be here. Yeah, so you can do all the same thing now from everywhere. So that also maybe gives, in the mind, many more opportunities. At least you can ask. Yeah, whether you get it is a different story, but now they are more brave and ask and say, is it possible that, and so on. I think that is another thing. And lastly, yeah, I agree with you. I guess the observation of, what's going on all the time and how our parents or relatives or older friends have worked and how they see life, it's not, it's not no longer aligned with what we are doing. Yeah, because also when I remember in our times, there was no climate change. There was no, a lot of things were not present in our minds. So our activities was more in sports and other things. Now I see also, the younger generation, fortunately, I would say, a shift in engaging in society. Yeah. And if this becomes a major topic for you, you have to rethink about, how you align your work with family and your social activities, and all these things together. It's my assumption, Andrea, led to this new belief and this new desires. I would even call it desires. Yeah, it's a desire for people to change something, and that means a completely new setup of your daily life and your activities.
Well, love the conversation. I would love to go further, but we have a panel coming up, and it will be also about leadership. So we have to switch studios, and we will be coming back. I will be in backstage, but we have an amazing panel lined up and talking about the topic of future of leadership, which partly we discussed here, and we started to, just scratch the surface. Thank you so much for being here again. It was again inspiring. I tell this that I'm just so enjoying this conversation. Everyone brings something new to the table every single year. And I'm very, very grateful for you, Juergen, for bringing all the insights from your experience, from your surroundings, from your life. And thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm happy to move into the next room now.
Yes, we will see you there very soon. And for the audience, please stay with us. We will continue on the same YouTube channel, but with another link. And we will having 45-50 minutes or 1 hour maximum panel discussion about the future of leadership. So see you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.